Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest. Former Cornell women's hockey player Erin O'Connor joins the show today. Welcome to the podcast, Erin, and how's everything going?
Thank you, Matt. Everything is going well. I'm very excited to be here and talk to you a little bit more about hockey and my hockey days. But everything's good. Thank you.
Now, before we start talking about your hockey career, what have you been up to since graduating Cornell a couple years ago?
So, Matt, I have to tell you, I am in the booze biz. So, right out of college, joined E&J Gallo Winery's leadership development program. So it's a sales and training program, basically. And I was randomly placed up in New Hampshire right out of college. I told them, send me wherever. I want to live all over the place before settling down one day. So I ended up in the great state of New Hampshire. I was there for about 10 months, and I was selling to like liquor stores and grocery stores. I then got the opportunity to move down to New Jersey. So I was in New Jersey for just under 2 years, where I sold booze to bars and restaurants, which was a whole nother beast. Which was very, very fun. And then I recently moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and was promoted to manager. So I now manage a team of sales reps to sell alcohol. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a lot of fun. No day is the same, and it's not a desk job. So I have an absolute blast with my job.
That's awesome. That's very interesting because whenever you think about the culinary industry, you think more about like just the regular restaurant setting, but it's cool to hear other parts of the industry as well, how you sell the product to different restaurants and to other spots as well. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It was a lot of fun up in New Jersey specifically, but it's all been a blast. So
Is that something you wanted to do after college, or was this kind of just something that happened like out of the blue?
honestly, it was out of the blue. It's funny you asked that, because somebody just asked me yesterday, and it was the fall of my senior year, and I was getting a little stressed. Everybody was posting on LinkedIn and what they were doing the next year, and I woke up to a message on LinkedIn one day from a girl who had played soccer at Cornell. Actually, she's like, "Hey, like I work for E&J Gallo Winery. Not sure what you're up to next year, but I'd love to grab a drink with you and talk about our leadership development program." So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna say no to this. I don't have any leads so far. So I ended up going out to dinner with her, had a blast. We got along really well. She told me about the leadership development program with Gallo. Went through their interview process, which was really fun, and the rest is history. So it all kind of worked out. Thank God. I ended up having a job a few months later and didn't have to worry about that in the winter or spring.
That's good to hear. And this is a hockey podcast, so I have to ask, do you still watch college hockey today? And if so, what's your thoughts on what's been going on as of late?
Yes, I do here and there. I don't watch it as much as I probably should, but hey, the real world is very busy. But it's been, honestly, when I watch games now, I'm like, oh my gosh, this hockey is unbelievable. Even 3 years ago, from 3 years ago, it's changed so much, right? Like the skills have developed so much, the speed has developed, like shots are harder, people skate faster, everything. Like the game is growing so much every single year. It's really exciting to see, obviously, just the talent develop, the game develop overall. So yeah, I don't watch it as much as I should, but when I do watch it, I am definitely amazed.
Yeah, and have you been back to Cornell since you graduated? And what's it like watching kind of your former team play as a fan instead of being a player on the ice?
Yes. So I went back, I think I've been back 3 times since I graduated, and I saw hockey games, I believe 2 out of 3 of those times. And let me tell you, it was so weird. Like, like being a fan. First off, I have to say I was probably the number one fan there, because like I know the feeling of being on the ice, having the crowd around you, and it was just so excited for all the girls out there on the ice. But it was super weird, right? Being like I'm like, this is my rink. I shouldn't say mine because that sounds selfish, but like, this is my rink. Like, this is where I've played for 4 years. Blood, sweat, and tears in here. And then to see like another team out there, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm no longer a part of this. I mean, of course, being an alumni, you're technically like always part of it, but you're not part of the current team. So it was weird, but it was also really cool. to kind of see things from the outside too, and be a fan. So I have been back. I definitely want to go back. I can't believe I'm saying this. My 5-year anniversary is like in 2 summers. So I'm definitely going to go back for that, but I want to get back for some hockey games too. I know things have been weird with COVID and, their season obviously last year was a different story. So hopefully I can get back there again and see some hockey.
Yeah, it must be weird now because you probably don't know anyone who's on the team currently or played with anyone on the team currently. So that must
I
be weird from
don't.
that perspective.
Yeah, it's really weird. The last group of girls I knew just graduated, so don't know anybody anymore. It's really, really bizarre. Of course, I know, like, I've seen things on social media, and I'm like, oh, she's on a hockey team, she's on a hockey team. It's not like I have a personal relationship with any of them. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is really weird.
And is it weird seeing someone wear your former number as well? Because I feel like as an alumni, that's got to be the most odd thing, I think, going back to your former school.
Yes, and honestly, like, does anybody wear to? I don't think anybody wore it last year. Somebody might probably have snagged it. I don't know if you know. You probably have stalked the roster recently with all these Cornell interviews, but I don't know. Do you know if anybody's wearing number 2?
I have no clue, to be honest with you. I thought
Okay.
someone might have
Okay.
took it as a freshman this year, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm just asking because I think usually most numbers get replaced after each year. It's usually the graduating class gives their numbers to the upcoming freshman class. That's how it normally works from what I've seen.
Yeah, for us it's a little bit different. It's like you just get to pick from a handful of numbers, and like not every number gets picked. Gosh, now you're really making me think. I know somebody has that number. Oh well, I'll have to look after this.
Yeah, I'll look it up after as well, but I'm just curious. It's even if it does happen in a few years, that's got to be weird as though.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, it was weird when I went back. I saw, for example, like I saw somebody wearing number 11, and that was like Brianne Jenner's number when she was my, a captain when I was a freshman. Like it was weird seeing. It's definitely weird seeing that happen over time too. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm curious. If somebody's wearing number 2, I got to reach out to them. Say, hey, represent number 2 well.
All right, I'll definitely look it up after this interview and let you know. So, but let's start off talking about the beginning of your hockey career and work all the way up to where you were, or where you are now, I guess, with graduating from Cornell. So you're from Evanston, Illinois. Just talk about growing up
Mhm.
there. What was that like, and what made you start playing hockey?
Yeah, Evanston was great. It was super fun to grow up there. For anybody who doesn't know, Evanston is the first suburb north of Chicago, super close to the city, but still, in the suburbs of the city. Wasn't a huge hockey town when I grew up. Like growing up, my family, and I'm one of 4, all of us played hockey at one point, but we were the only kids to play hockey in our grade school for such a long time. Like we were known as a hockey family. And as time went on, it kind of grew. And as the Blackhawks actually got better and won Stanley Cups and stuff, hockey exploded in Chicago. But it definitely took some time. But I'd say my dad got us all into hockey. He is a hockey nut. He still plays like 4 times a year in the winter, maybe 5 if there's more outdoor rinks are open. So again, he's a hockey guy. He got us all into it. He even got my mom to play in an adult league on Sunday nights. I think the games were at like 10 p.m. or something like that. So shout out to Pat Connor for that.
Have you had the chance to see your parents play in those 10 p.m. games? Because that must be fun to watch. Just being seeing your parents play hockey.
No, I was so young that I never got to see my mom play in those. But my dad used to drag us to his skates back in the day. But when I got old enough to skate with him, I started playing with him all the time in the summer, which was really fun actually. I feel like I kind of learned a lot from the older guys, which probably you're like, what the heck? These dads taught you something, but they definitely did. The game's a whole lot different than what I'm used to being a kid, but they've been playing for what, like 30 years, 40 years. They know a heck of a lot about the game too. So I definitely learned a lot from playing with my dad and a lot of his friends too. So definitely got to see my dad play a bunch of times, but my mom, I sadly never got to see one of her games, which I'm so disappointed in.
You should try to get her to get the skates back on and try to see her play now. I don't know if you could do that, but I think that would be cool.
I know, right? We used to build a rink in our backyard, and she'd like sometimes just throw skates on and skate, but really wasn't her thing. She was really forced into it, the poor thing.
Yeah. Well, who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone on Chicago Blackhawks, or was it another female women's hockey player maybe who was from the Chicago area or on the national team?
Yeah, so I'll say two. The first would be Marian Hossa from the Blackhawks. He was just so fun to watch, and I was in like end of grade school and then in high school, and the Blackhawks had their Stanley Cup run when they, I think it was what, three cups in 5 years, 2010, 2013, 2015.
Hmm.
Could be
I
wrong,
remember one of
but
them. They beat the Bruins, which was tough for me as a kid.
yeah, being a math kid, so that was really really fun. We went to a bunch of games and stuff back in the day, but as far as women's hockey go, I would say Angela Ruggiero, and I'm not sure if you're going to recognize her name, but like she's one of, I don't even know where to begin. I used to go to camps back in the day in high school, and she used to lead. I think I went to two or three of her camps, and she just the way she carried herself. I honestly didn't even get to really see her play because her playing days were like coming to an end when I found out who she was. But I remember having like a signed card up in my room for so long, and just the way she like acted and carried herself was so cool. And she was, I'm honestly gonna blank on a lot of her stats and stuff, but I just know how powerful of a player she was, and I watched some of her highlights and like older games and stuff, so that was really cool to see. But I mean, I feel like she was a leading force in women's hockey for sure, and one of the first to really get things going on the women's side of things. So definitely her.
Yeah, I've heard of her before. I never remember her watching her play, but she does some TV stuff for the NHL and for some women's hockey stuff as well. So it's cool hearing her perspective from her playing days and how it translates to what the players are doing now. So I think she's a great broadcaster. So it's fun seeing her do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember at one of the camps she was saying she might have been asked to be on like the Olympic board or something. And I totally could be making this up now. I was a kid, but I mean, her even just saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. Like, I want to be just like her one day. So, as far as women's hockey players go, she was definitely an idol when I was a kid.
Now, you started off your youth career playing for the Chicago Young Americans. Just talk about that experience there and what did you take away from your 2 years there overall?
Yeah, so I started playing for CYA. I played on their first U12 team. And I played boys hockey growing up, and then I played. I was also on the first girls hockey team in Evanston. So I played on two teams then. Then I did CYA U12 for a year, which was awesome. And then I actually played throughout high school. So I played on two teams almost my entire life. I played for both Loyola Academy, my high school, and I played for CYA. So I think I played for CYA. I want to say it was 5 years total. And it was awesome. It was super fun. There was a really, really awesome group of girls that we were like the core group that kind of went through the 5 years together. And we had the same coach, learned so much together, grew together, became, hockey players together. And a lot of us ended up going on and played in college. So it was a lot of fun. I loved CIA. I loved going on tournaments. I loved just the competitive nature of AAA hockey. So it was a ton of fun. Yeah, ton of fun.
And how did you get the opportunity to go to the Loyola Academy and play for that hockey team?
So where I live, you can either go to, the local high school or go off to a private school. My parents were big private school people. So they sent us off to Loyola Academy. I shouldn't say sent us off. It makes it sound like a boarding school, but it's not. It's just a big high school in the northern suburbs of Chicago, but very blessed to have been able to go there. Loyola was great. Learned a ton there. Great school overall. And then the hockey part, I had played on two teams for a long time in my life, and I got the opportunity to do it again. And at first I was kind of hesitant to it. I figured it'd be a lot with my schedule. I was playing so much hockey with COA as it was, but my dad kind of, I don't want to say forced me, but basically told me about all how the pros outweighed the cons of playing Loyola hockey. And I'm so grateful that I did. Like, it was such a great experience. I was able to get in extra games. I was able to get in extra practices throughout the week. I mean, it was crazy, Matt. When I tell you I played more hockey than I ever had. Like I'd come back from a tournament with we'd be driving home from Detroit on a Sunday. I had just played games, Friday, Saturday, that day, Sunday, I had 2 games. I'd drive straight to a game to go play for Loyola on Sunday night. Like, it was insane. But it was so awesome. I learned how to like really, really work hard. Like, I think I got a lot of my like hockey strength and endurance during those times too, which really set me up well for freshman year of college. So it was great. I had a lot of fun.
And how did you balance both hockey and academics when you were playing at Loyola and with CYA? Because obviously, like you were saying, you're playing so much hockey, but you also have to think about the academic side of it as well. How did you balance all that?
Yeah. I mean, it was nuts. I fortunately at Loyola, we were given a lunch period, and then you got either 1 or 2 free periods. And a lot of kids during their free periods and their lunch periods were like, they'd go to the cafeteria, they'd hang out. It was kind of social hour, and I would just sit in the hallway and do all of my homework because I did not have the time to go be social during my free periods. So I would crank out all my homework throughout the school day, and then that would allow for, you're gonna laugh, but like a nap after school, and then I'd go into practice after that. And when I was a senior in high school, I remember we had the late slots for CYA. So I think we got off the ice at 10:15, and everybody had to drive home after. And I fortunately didn't live too far from the rink, so I'd get home around 11:30 or so, and then wake up the next morning at 6:30 for high school, which was insane. But there were people on my team on CYA. We had 2 people who lived in Wisconsin, so you'd have to drive like an hour home. So it was insane. I was definitely a lot to juggle, but I think going through that really set me up for success in my future. Being able to balance being a D1 athlete and going to Cornell, and then even in my life now, like I still have to balance my time. And I think looking back into my senior year of high school, that's where it all started. So yeah, it was a lot, but it was also the best.
Listen, I'm not the one to hate on naps. I'm a big nap guy myself, especially after high school. After a long day, it felt good to take like
Yes,
a long nap. I
I
don't know why
mean,
people hate on it for some reason.
yes, when you're high school, I mean, you're growing kids. Like, you got to eat a lot, you got to sleep a lot. There's
Mhm,
so many moving pieces. Like, hey, naps are great. I
mhm.
I I lived for them back in the day, but not anymore.
Yeah, no, I just always thought it was weird because one time I remember I took a nap after school and I just fell asleep on my couch and I woke up and I didn't know where I was for like the first few seconds. So like made me like I was like, going crazy, but I was like, all right, no, I'm just on the couch. Like I just took a longer nap than I should have. So that's like the only thing from naps that
Yeah.
like I remember like being like terrified of.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Do you still take them in college? Because
Oh
college,
yeah.
I feel like I took a ton. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. College is big napping time of your life.
Yeah, but it's not like high school is a little more like every day I took a nap at the same time. College, it's like it depends on the day. It's like it gets scattered. So some days I take naps like in the afternoon, but when I have like school and like it depends on like my schedule throughout the day. Sometimes I take a nap in the afternoon. Sometimes I take it like late at night. Sometimes I take it like once I get up, eat some breakfast, have some schoolwork, and then I just take a nap. So it really depends on like how the day works, which is probably not the healthiest, but that's how I do it.
I was gonna say, Matt. They say humans are a creature of habit, but it sounds like you don't have you don't have a habit or routine with your napping there. But
Mhm.
that's all right, as long as you get them in, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was weird last year with school being all online, so I didn't have any in-person classes, so I had a little more free time to do naps when I wanted to, versus this upcoming year where I have to do in-person classes. So it will probably be a little more structured, I feel like, next year
Yeah,
compared to last year when it was just crazy with the whole coronavirus still going around.
yeah. Are you gonna still do these? Well, 2 questions. One, when do you go back to school?
I go back to school September 2nd, but it's weird
Okay,
because I only have one class that week, and because then it's Labor Day weekend, so we have that weekend off, and then we have
true.
school back on that Tuesday. So it really starts September 7th, but my first class is September 2nd, but then I just take that one class, and then I start really on the 7th.
Gotcha. And are you gonna keep doing this podcast
Oh yeah, I
throughout
love
school year?
college
Yeah.
hockey. I love doing it. Yeah, I did it all last year when I was a freshman, so I'm definitely going to continue to do
Oh,
it.
nice.
Now I'm in
Awesome.
school as well. Just a little less interviews, I would assume, probably during the school year.
I got you. Very cool. Well, I'm sorry to your interview here, but
No, it's not a
I just
problem
had
at
to
all.
ask
I
those
think
two
some
things.
of the listeners might be curious about how I balance it out. So,
Yeah.
Now, when you were with Loyola, what's the best memory you had with that academy?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember now if it was I think it was my senior year. We got to go to state championship, and we were playing against our rival high school, New Trier, which if anybody's from Chicago, they probably know what New Trier is. Some say Mean Girls was named after them. Not to say that there's a bunch of mean people there, but it's just a massive school. But we were playing against New Trier, and we got to play at the United Center where the Blackhawks play. And I should say my sister played on the team, so I got to play with her for 3 years. This was like I think this was my last game ever for Loyola. So there's a lot on the line. We ended up losing the game, which you're probably like, why is that your best memory? But the whole experience was really cool, like being on the Jumbotron and having a bunch of friends and family there. And I will say, we definitely shouldn't have lost the game. So I'll tell you, in high school hockey, there's no video replay or anything. And because we were in the United Center, they actually were like recording the game. They had like everything on the Jumbotron. And I remember we scored a goal, and it wasn't me, but somebody scored a goal, and it hit the back bar in the net and bounced out so fast that everybody like was so confused. We started celebrating. New Trier kept playing, and so the ref like blew the whistle. They're like, stop playing. So we all like look up, and they're replaying the play, and the puck went in the net. But because there's no video replay in high school, they had to call it a no goal because the refs didn't see it. They didn't think it was a goal. Meanwhile, it's playing above us on the Jumbotron over and over and over again. We're like, are you kidding me? So that was really funny. I mean, we kind of had to laugh after that. We probably, we would have tied the game and went into OT, and who knows what would have happened. But that was one of my favorite experiences. We got to play at the United Center when we were kids in the state. I don't know if it was a state championship, but in one of the tournaments, which was really cool. And then to be able to do it years later after being a Blackhawks fan and be a senior in high school, it was a really cool experience too. So I say that was the most memorable to me.
Oh yeah, getting the chance to play an NHL rank, that's like everyone's dream. So I can't imagine what that would have been like for yourself, getting the chance to play in your favorite team's home rank for your final high school hockey game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, to say the least.
Now, how did Loyola help prepare you for college hockey with Cornell?
Hockey side or academic side or both?
Both, I guess, because that's why you're going to Cornell, to be a student first before athlete.
Yes. I'll say academically, Loyola was really tough. But they set their students up really well. I think if I hadn't gone to Loyola, I don't know if I would have been as good about like time. Well, I know we touched on this a little bit, but time management and been really on top of my classes and been really organized. So I'm very grateful for that. Definitely prepared me well for college on the academic side. And then for the hockey side, Loyola was great. I got to work on extra things because, like I was saying, I played on 2 teams. So whatever I didn't get to practice on at CYI, I was able to practice at Loyola. So just gave me extra opportunity to get on the ice and be on another team and play with different people too, because you're not completely playing with the same people all the time in college. So, being on 2 teams, I got to really learn how to play with a bunch of different people. And not only that, I forgot to mention, I played defense at Cornell. So I played center for Loyola. So I was playing forward for one team, defense for another. So I used to say when I was a freshman in college, like I was a very offensive defenseman. And I think that's because of my experiences in high school. So all
Yeah.
worked out for the best, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it must have been an easy transition for yourself going to defense at college after having that experience in high school.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say it's like super easy by any means, but it was a transition, and I definitely made it over some time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, what was your recruitment process like, and what made you want to go to Cornell versus other schools? Because I know it's a little bit different going to an Ivy League school because there's not that letter of intention that most players sign when they go D1 versus – because I know Ivy League, you don't do that versus other schools you might wanted to visit or go.
Yes. So, Matt, I had a very weird, and I'll just be very honest with you, I had a very weird recruiting process. So my sophomore year of high school, I'm driving, and I think it was February, so I was very young. And I was driving with my dad in a snowstorm in February, like home from a tournament. I made a call for my coach, my CYA coach. He's like, hey, this school wants Erin to commit to them. I won't name names, but it was another Ivy League school, and they're like, Erin, they want Erin to commit to them. And I'm like, I'm not going to say no to an Ivy League school. You know, I hadn't been there to visit. I hadn't actually met the coaches, and we couldn't talk verbally at the time. There was no communications between you and the coach. Like, there's none of that back then. So they had to do it through my coach. And I'm like, sure. I look at my dad. I'm like, I'm not going to say no. My dad's like, I think you have to. I'm like, I think I do have to. So I committed to this school my sophomore year, ended up visiting, had a great time. Like a year goes by, and I get a call from the coach, and they're like, hey, Erin, so, you know, we have a lot of Olympians coming back when you're going to be a freshman. So we're going to have like 9-10D. You know, we want you to post grad so that when you come in as a freshman, you play, because then by then all those girls will have graduated. And I was like, I don't know if I want, you know, I'll have to think about that. And, you know, after a lot of thought, I really didn't want to play another year of high school hockey. Felt like I was really ready to go play in college. So I ended up decommitting from that school. That was my fall of my junior year. And like the next weekend I had a big tournament. So a lot of college coaches were going to be there. A lot of girls were still getting recruited, and got really, really, you know, lucky being at that tournament, right time, right place. And Cornell ended up reaching out to me after that tournament, like, hey, we want you to come out for a visit. So I went out to visit them and committed to them that weekend. I remember they were playing BC that weekend, out of conference series, and they were undefeated at the time. Like, Cornell was crushing it, and it was so, like, I got to be in a game in line, I see the atmosphere, which was super fun. I got to meet the team. I got to stay, and I think I stayed, where did I stay? I can't remember if I stayed with my dad or if I stayed with one of the players, but I had the best time at Cornell, honestly. I stayed with my dad now that I remember it. I had the best visit ever. I was like over the moon with how things kind of had worked out. So, you know, committed to there, and the rest is history. So very weird recruiting story, but it definitely all worked out for the best. And I'm so grateful to have ended up at Cornell. Again, when I was a sophomore in high school, like I hadn't even visited the school that I had committed to. Like, I just went for it. And in hindsight, probably wasn't the smartest move, but I didn't know any better being a sophomore in high school. But yeah, very grateful to have ended up at Cornell. It was so, like I said, so much fun. I absolutely loved going there and playing for Cornell.
Yeah, that has to be one of the craziest recruiting stories I've ever heard, because now that wouldn't even be able to happen because they can't talk to kids until they're juniors in high
Yes,
school. I think because of the reason you mentioned, because of the
it
whole
was
process.
insane. Yeah, it was insane. And I think at that time, like, I was the second youngest girl ever to have been, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like, just to show how different it was back then, like the second youngest girl ever to have recruited or been committed to a school at that time. And then, you know, a couple of years later, all those rules went into effect. So yeah, it was wild. It definitely added a lot of stress to my junior fall of high school, to say the least. But like I said, everything worked out.
Now, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? I know you were saying how you had the transition to a defenseman full time in college was a bit of an adjustment, but was it the speed of the game as well? That was an adjustment for yourself?
Definitely the speed of the game. And then, I mean, all of the like skills that are involved. You know, in college, right? You have like video, you have off ice training, you have on ice training. There's all so many different components, and I didn't even know half of those components when I had gotten to college. And that's not a knock on any of my experiences in high school. It's just college is like a whole different level and you know, we have the budget for all of these things too. So it was definitely an adjustment. I remember doing my first, I think it was our first one-on-one drill in college. And again, shout out to Brianne Turner. I went on a one-on-one with her. And I remember my coach telling me, he was like, Erin, you know, she's an Olympian. Like, you're going to want to be able to stop her at one point in your career. Like, if you can, that's what you're going to work towards, is stopping her on a one-on-one. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. And, you know, I'm all nervous. I'm about to do a one-on-one with her, and like gap up and I start skating backwards as fast as I can. She like flips the puck, bounces it between my legs, and goes and dekes the goalie. Like, absolutely ridiculous. And I was like, all right, this is college hockey. I gotta catch up quick. So definitely took a lot of work, but like I said, like, the coaches know what to look out for, like whether it's your feet or your shot or just your stride. Like, there's so many different components, and once your coach makes you aware of the things you need to work on, I mean, you can kind of catch up once you start working on all those things. So yeah, I'll never, ever, ever forget that one-on-one, honestly. And I don't even know if she knows that, but good
You
times.
should mention that to her if you ever get to see her again. It's like first
I
freshman
will.
practice, you beat me in a one-on-one, and I will never forget it because that's how it motivated me throughout my college hockey career.
I I honestly might like screen record like that part of this interview and send it to her and be like, hey, just
Hmm.
want to make sure you knew this.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
she's probably a little bit busy, I would assume, right now with the whole World Championships going on. But after that, you can probably send that to
Yes.
her and talk to her.
After that.
Now,
Exactly.
now
Exactly.
now in your freshman year, you played in the East. You lost in the ECAC final against Harvard. I just want to ask you, what did you take away from that game since it was your first playoff experience, and how did that game help motivate you, I guess, heading into your next 3 years with Cornell?
Yeah. I mean, it obviously hurt. Like losing in any type of final is so painful. Your seasons come to an end and you kind of have flashbacks to all the things you might have done wrong in that game. But I think you can learn from really any final game, right? You think you learn it from your own mistakes, from the mistakes the team makes as a whole, right? Hockey is obviously such a huge team game, and if there was something off about the team, something that people weren't on the same page about, like that might have been the difference right there. Maybe it was the way you prepared for the game. Maybe it was what you did last night. Like, were you thinking about the game? Did you have too many ice cream bars? Like, there's, there's a lot you can learn from a final game, but try not to dwell too much on that stuff, and kind of I like to look forward and into the future. And I think takeaways from that game are, try not to make all of those little mistakes, but when you do, try to recover as quickly as you can. So
Now, in your sophomore year, you got to play in an in-season tournament called the Vermont Classic. Talk about playing in that in-season tournament and winning it nonetheless, because that seems like that'll be probably one of the best memories you had at college hockey, getting the chance to play in a tournament like that against teams that you normally don't play during a normal regular season.
exactly, and that's what I was going to say to start is, one, getting to play against teams that you don't ever really get to play was really cool. And two, my mom's actually from Burlington, Vermont. So I grew up going out to Burlington every summer and spending a week with my grandparents. So I actually had a lot of my mom's family at that tournament, which was really cool because they didn't really get to see a ton of my hockey growing up or anything like that. So I had a lot of fun. It was such a great weekend. I definitely won't forget that one. And winning it, like you said, nonetheless, was cherry on top. So it was a great weekend.
Now, your team drastically improved from your sophomore year to your junior year. What did your team do during that offseason to make such improvements, and what role did you play in that?
So I'm not sure if there's anything, like one thing that made our team, better from my sophomore year to the junior year. But I think our coaches do such a good job of off ice training, and it's not only just the working out and the physical side of things, but it's also like the mental side of things. We were given leadership books, like teamwork books, like all that kind of stuff throughout the summer to read, and we'd come back and do like session. I don't want to say book club, but it's definitely not book club. They're more like discussions on the books that we read. So our coach is very driven to drive like a team culture within us all, and I think going into my junior year, we are all so bought into that idea of that we are one, that we are a team. We're not, a group of these individuals. Like we were all on the same board. We were all wanting to win, wanting to work hard. So I guess that's really what it was, is, we all kind of bought in over that summer, and we were all really on the same page when we got to college that fall.
Yeah, I think that's super cool because from just looking at the schedule, seeing how your team lost in the first round in the ECAC playoffs your sophomore year, then making it to the national tournament the following year, it's kind of cool to see what your team did during that offseason to make that improvement and get to that national tournament stage the following year. And talking to one of your
Mm-hmm.
former teammates in the podcast, Hannah Bunton, she was telling me how you guys were very upset about your team's performance your sophomore year, and she said that it didn't really lead up to Cornell's standard. So they used that as motivation heading into that season as well. Did you feel the same way as she did on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were so upset by that season. Just things were not happening for us. You know, we really didn't have the season that we had hoped for. And like she said, and like you had just said, it really motivated us to be prepared for the next season. So I think everybody worked really hard that summer to come back and be in the best shape of their life and be really excited about the season and ready to go. So absolutely.
Now, in your junior year, you lost in the ECAC final again. But talk about that loss. How did it compare to the one you had your freshman year, and how did you use that loss heading into the national tournament your junior year?
Oh man, I mean, first off, the loss hurt as always. Um, but you know, I think that after all of the work that we had put in, like we had gone so far, and like the season we had prior, we had made such big improvements that was a huge win in itself. Like we, you know, looking at the year prior, we had just, I'm repeating myself here, but we had just come such a long way. And yeah, the loss hurt so bad in the moment. But now that I'm so many years removed, like, wow, we really did make it far. Like we really did have such a great season in hindsight, despite that loss. So another learning lesson to say the least, though.
Mm-hmm. And you played in the national tournament that year, your first ever game in the national tournament
Mm-hmm.
against Clarkson. What was it like playing against your biggest rivals on that type of stage, and what do you remember from that game?
Of course, I remember the Clarkson. I don't know what they call it, like horn or something. They have the loudest goal horn I've ever heard in my entire life, and they play it when like they like honk it when people are coming on the ice, and it just like shakes you when you first walk into the rink and hear it for the first time because you're just not used to it. Have you ever been to Clarkson? Have you ever
No,
heard?
I've only been to
I'm telling you.
places in Hockey East Conference, not many ECAC rinks.
Okay, well, you got to make a trip there at some point in your life, at least for a game, because it's this horn. I mean, Matt, you got to hear it before you graduate college. But it's insane. I remember that first and foremost. I remember the energy was completely different. Everybody was really serious, really focused. Like preparation was completely different. Not completely different, but it was just like buttoned up. Like everybody was in the zone. You know, had their headphones on. Like everybody was just really, really, really getting ready for that game. And I think there was definitely like a nervous energy about it too, because obviously it's the national tournament, a lot more at stake, wanting to be in the Frozen Four and all that too. But yeah, it was a great weekend. I feel like it flew by, really flew by. I feel like it's so weird being this far out and looking back, honestly. Like I'm picturing like I can still see like the NCAA tournament, like things on the boards, on the ice, different banners and posters all around the rink. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of fun.
And looking back on it now, obviously Clarkson, I think, won the national tournament that year. So does it make you like, I don't know, when you look back on it, it's like, well, we really made it as far as we could because we lost to the best team in the country that year.
Yes, but of course you always like to think you could have beat them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
we're like, dang, if we would have beat them, like could we have won the national championship?
Yeah.
Maybe. So, but yeah, we always battled it out with Clarkson my last couple of years at
Mm-hmm.
Cornell. We definitely butt heads with them and always were striving to beat them towards the end there.
Now, before I visit Clarkson, I have to visit Lino Rink before that, just
Okay.
because I was talking to one of the players on the podcast. They said there's no warm-up music at Lino. It's your band just playing. So that's something that I have to adjust to because I'm used to kind of the loud music blaring during warm-ups.
Yes, I have to say it depends on if there's like what other games are happening too. Sometimes we'll have music, like if there's a game, say there's a basketball game happening and the pep band's over there and our game's starting, they might not make it over to our game until the basketball game's over. So in those situations we'll have music, but yeah, it's usually the pep band. I highly recommend going for a weekend where it's a home and home. So when the guys and the girls are playing, it's
Oh, yeah.
really fun. I think the girls play. So we used to do it like I think the girls would play at 1 noon or 1, and the guys play at 7. So those are really fun weekends. Highly recommend going to one of those if you can. The energy in the rink is insane. You go to the girls' game, go out for dinner, come back, go to the guys' game, and it's insane. So highly recommend that.
Yeah, especially against Clarkson too, because I'm assuming the
Yeah.
men's team has a big rivalry with Clarkson as well. So that would be fun
Yeah,
experiences for a fan perspective, definitely.
absolutely.
Now, you were named captain before your senior year. What was your reaction when you got that announcement that you were going to be captain of the team? And what type of leadership did you want to bring to the team? Were you more of a vocal or a lead by example type of player?
I was very excited. It was something that I always wanted. Being at Cornell, I always wanted to be a captain. I always kind of saw myself as a leader, and I guess getting the C kind of solidified that. And I guess I'd say I led by example. If there were things that I felt I needed to be vocal or wanted to be vocal about, I would. But I really am a firm believer in leading by example. I loved being a captain at Cornell. It was such an honor. I had the best time leading the team.
And you played your final college hockey game against Colgate your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about the emotions after that game, knowing that it was your final college hockey game, and what do you remember from that game? Thinking about it a few years ago now.
Yeah. I mean, geez, it was definitely. I don't think it didn't hit me that it was my last game till it was over, honestly. But it was definitely sad. Like I remember just being flooded with memories of playing hockey my entire life. And I knew I wasn't going to be playing after college. So I had flashbacks of when I was a kid and going to the rinks and playing in my backyard as a kid as well. And just all of the years I had playing the sport, and it had just come to an end just like that. So definitely it was so sad looking back. But at the same time I was so grateful for all the friends and memories that the sport had given me. So I guess that's really how you have to look at it, right? In hindsight. But
Yeah, that's one of my next question. Thinking about it now, what do you take away from your time at Cornell, and how did it help you as a person in your job now and as a hockey player during your senior year as well?
yeah, I guess some takeaways. I mean, gosh, you learn a lot from playing a sport in college. You're disciplined, hardworking, time management. Third time touching on that, I think today. But so many takeaways from playing a D1 sport in college, and I feel like it's something that not a lot of people can relate to unless you've been through it. Met so many D1 college athletes like post college, and we were like, oh my gosh, you had to do this, you had to do that, and it's just funny kind of talking about that now. But so grateful for all the friends that I've made. There's so many friends, specifically hockey players from my team at Cornell that I still keep in touch with. Some of my best friends to this day. You were talking about Hannah Bunton earlier, and her and I text almost every single day, and she's up in Calgary, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, so far away, but we still stay in contact. And yeah, I mean, just the best experience. What was the second part of your question? I think I might have missed it, honestly.
It was just like, how did it help you as a hockey player? Thinking about it
Oh,
now, from going from your freshman year to senior year, and did you get to stop an Olympian on a one-on-one after the Brianne Jenner experience?
I did think I finally got to stop her. I actually remember stopping her and Julian Saunier as well in practice, and I was like so psyched. And they probably meant nothing to them. They were like probably thought it was their mistake or something like that. And I'm like cheering for myself on the sidelines. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, playing D1 hockey at Cornell was an amazing experience. I have lifelong friends from Cornell, and I'll always look at Cornell as such a special place. So.
Bunton, does she have the best style you've ever seen a hockey player have? Because I interviewed her before, and I feel like she probably does, in my opinion.
Yes, I feel like so many people probably answer that too from Cornell, but yeah, I'd say she had the best style. She is the one that got me to wear the Bauer helmet that I ended up wearing my last 3 years of Cornell because it was a better style, even though it was an older helmet. But shout out to her for that. So
Now, I want to ask you about some of the teammates you got to play with. The first one is
Hmm.
Kristen O'Neill. I had her on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and as a
Oh
fan of
yeah.
hers, it's been so fun to see the growth she's made from her college days and now being on the national team with Team Canada. But from your experience, what was she like as a teammate, both on and off the ice? And she was also a captain her sophomore year as well, which was cool to see, or cool to hear about as well.
Yeah, her and I were captains together. It was awesome. With Sarani, I should say. Shout out to her too. So Kristen's great. I will say, so you first meet her and she's a little quiet, and then you like see her on the ice, and you're like, oh my gosh, like she's an animal. Like you might not think it like when you first meet her, but then you see like, I mean, you've watched her play, but she is an absolute animal out there. Totally dominates the game. One of the fastest people I've ever seen on the ice. I remember watching her on penalty kills, and I think she's at the record for shorthand
Hmm.
PK goals. If that was that her sophomore year? And I was like, of course she does. Like she's the fastest player. I swear in the NCAA could just poke the puck away from somebody and score a goal. So yeah, she was a great teammate. She was really hardworking as well. She was always putting in the extra time to make herself better. And I mean, she wouldn't stop. Like she was an absolute animal. I keep saying that word, but I feel like that definitely describes her. So
Yeah, talking to some of the other teammates, it's like you don't realize like what she puts in the work when she's not playing hockey, because she was apparently one of the hardest
mhm.
workers in the weight room. But she also, I was talking to her on the podcast, and some of the stuff she does for her diet as well. She invests so much money, I guess, just to make herself a better hockey player off the ice, and that's something I think a lot of players don't consider, is just the effort you have to put in off the ice as well, not just on the ice. And I think she's a perfect example of that.
She absolutely is. You nailed it. Like she puts in just as much work off the ice, if not more, than she does on the ice.
Mhm.
It's very inspiring.
Mhm. And you're saying like how she's ruthless on the ice. I remember seeing her play, and you're like, wow, she's so fun to watch. And then you meet her in person. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met in
Yes,
college hockey, which is another testament to how good of a person she is, and as a good hockey player she is as well.
it's funny because she's such a sweetheart. Like
Hmm.
so nice on the ice. An absolute beast. So
Yeah.
I love it.
You also got to play with Jamie Berbine, who's really developed to one of the best defensemen for Team Canada, and she's obviously going to be in the World Championships as well. What was she like as a teammate, both on and off the ice, and what was it like seeing her development from her freshman year and now seeing her what she's doing today?
Yeah, Jamie, another awesome teammate. I mean, I remember her coming in freshman year, and she was just like, killing it right out of the gates. Like she was such a great defense, just stepping in day one. But that didn't like her having such a great freshman year didn't stop her from developing into the player she is today. She got better every single year in college, which honestly is really hard to do. But a lot of people like plateau, and she's one of the few people, which probably is why she's where she is today. But she's, along with Kristen, one of the few people who got better every single year. And she was off the ice. She was so much fun. She's always laughing, dancing, singing, like just a really fun energy about her. So she was another really great teammate too. She also put in a lot of work off the ice, which again probably got her to where she is today. So great teammates you've asked me about so far.
Yeah, and it's cool seeing their success they're having now after their Cornell playing days. I'm assuming being like you said, you were captain with Kristen O'Neill. It must be cool to see her success now, and then seeing Jamie's success now after seeing her freshman year with Cornell.
Definitely.
Now we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit off the ice, even though we did talk about it a little bit in the beginning with what you're up to now. So my first question to you is, what's your favorite TV show to watch?
Oh, okay, Matt. So there's something you should know about me is I'm really bad with TV and movies. And I don't know really any actors or actresses. So we're going to start out with that. It's a little precursor for everybody. I will say one of my favorite shows that I've watched recently is Band of Brothers on HBO. I don't know. Have you seen that show before?
Yeah, it's the one about World War II.
Yes. So I love like war books. And I was told that I just needed to watch this series. So crushed that series. Didn't binge it, but crushed it. And absolutely loved it. I think it's so good. So I say that's one of my favorite shows year to date. I haven't watched a ton of shows, but that one's up there.
Yeah, I remember watching the scene in a history class in high school when they I think it was when they freed one of the concentration camps, and it was just super emotional to see, just because it was so accurate to what actually happened in real life, because I think they talked to real soldiers about their experiences about it. So that's, I think that's
Yes.
what makes that series so great, is just how historically accurate it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you? Oh, I just thought of another one. Did you ever see The Last Dance, Michael Jordan?
Oh yeah, I watched that last year
Okay.
during quarantine. That was fun.
So good. Love that one too. I've been recommending that to everybody. Of course, I'm a little biased because I'm from Chicago, but
Hmm.
such a good show. Such a
My
good show.
favorite part
That
of that show, I think, was when he was talking about how ruthless Michael Jordan was to play with. Like, it was not like probably the best experience for some players to play with. And he's like, I might not be a nice guy, but that's because you guys never won anything. And it's like, and it was
one.
just so funny to see how competitive he was, how serious he was. And that's something like, I guess some players need to, I guess, need to have more of that competitive edge, I guess, to reach their goals. And Kobe was the same way. I've read a lot of books about him. It was just cool to kind of see their competitive edge and how ruthless they were, and especially how tough they were to play with some of their teammates as well.
Yeah, insane. It was really cool to see kind of behind the scenes of everything too.
Hmm.
Loved it.
Yeah, and then that Jerry Krause kind of ruined everything because he just didn't want to play. But they made him kind of the villain. I don't know if he was the real
They
villain
did.
in real life, but I think they just, that's the one thing I complained I had about the documentary, was how they just turned this one owner into like a villain. Even I don't think he was probably the villain. I think it was just the way things happen in sports.
Isn't that funny how like producers will do that with shows? I mean, you hear about it all the time with reality TV shows and stuff, but I feel like producers totally can warp the perception of how people really are.
Hmm.
But
Well, I don't watch too much TV myself. I really just watch hockey, baseball, football, and that kind of things. But I guess something I've been watching recently is Outer Banks. It's a show on Netflix. It's pretty entertaining. So I'm almost done with it. I'm one more episode left, and I finished the last season, which I'm excited about. I usually don't get to watch that much TV, so it's been a good watch for myself.
I'll have to give that one a shot.
Hmm.
Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, no problem. Now, I guess if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why? Michael Jordan, maybe, even though he might criticize some things about your work ethic, because I feel like that's what he would do with me if I ever had lunch with him.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question. Um, Let me think. Lunch
I'll
with
go
anybody
first if
in
you want me
yeah,
to.
can you I was gonna say, can you please go if you know your answer? Because this is gonna take me a second here.
So what I would choose is Tom Brady. I'm a big Patriots fan, and to see what he's overcome to get to where he is today, I think is super
Hmm.
inspiring for myself. Just because like he was a sixth-round draft pick, and just to
Yeah.
see how far he came to where he is today is pretty cool because no one really believed in him. And I also want to hear how he deals with all the negativity because he's probably one of the most hated players I think in the NFL, and just how he deals with it. And he just jokes around about it. I think is really cool. And then for a hockey perspective, Brad Marchand, big Bruins guy, and I like his game a lot too. So I'd love to hear his story.
Geez, you had two answers right there. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm like still thinking over here who the heck I'd go to lunch with. Um, let's see. I'm gonna have to skip this one, Matt. I'm not good with thinking of these types of things right on the spot. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. I'm so lame. Jeez.
No, it's not a problem at all. Maybe another answer I'll choose is Erin O'Connor from the Cornell women's hockey team. It was cool. It'll be cool to hear more of her story in person than through the internet.
Yeah, there you go. I
Mhm.
like it.
Now, who was the funniest teammate you had when you were with Cornell?
Oh my gosh, Sid Sirocco. She didn't play all 4 years. She played freshman and sophomore year. Unfortunately, had to quit because of concussion issues. But is still one of my best friends to this day. Lived with her for 4 years at Cornell, and we lived together freshman year as well. So like, right off the bat, we're living together and just had the best time. But she was so funny. Another Chicago girl. We actually played um, on rival teams growing up. So she played for the Chicago Mission, and I played for the Chicago Young Americans. We kind of knew of each other, but didn't know each other well or anything. And then as soon as we found out we were both going to Cornell, we actually went on our official visit together. Actually, maybe it wasn't our official visit. Maybe it was another visit. And it was so much fun. And kind of knew immediately. I was like, this girl's funny. So as years went on, she just did the most ridiculous things in the locker room, out of the locker room, on the ice, off the ice, just always making people laugh. So I'm very grateful for her and very grateful to have her as one of my best friends.
Now, final non-hockey question. Who had the best style on the team when you were there, besides yourself and Bunton, obviously?
Oh man, besides us, that's that's
You guys set
tough.
the bar pretty high, so I'm curious to see who else was with you guys.
Man, I'd love to throw Paige Lewis out there, but everybody would know I'm joking because she used to tie her, she used to wrap her laces around her ankles. I have to send her a clip of of me telling everybody this right now. Let's see. Emily Fulton, she was a senior when I was a freshman. She had, honestly, all the seniors when I was a freshman had great style, like Jill and Jenner
Hmm.
as well. I'm trying to think if there's anybody younger. Joey Phelps had great style. Curlew. Yeah, I mean, those are just to name a few, I guess.
Nice. Well, back to some hockey questions now. My first question too is, what do you think should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion?
I think just talking about it, honestly. Like I feel like when people talk about hockey, they're always talking about the NHL. And of course that's the easiest and most natural way to go about it, right? But I really liked earlier, like you asked me who's your favorite hockey player, and you said male or female. And people don't always say that. So I think just keeping in mind, like, hey, you can have a favorite player and they can be a girl. Like,
Hmm.
hey, college hockey or women's hockey is big now. It's growing. It's not where it should be, but it's definitely growing. And there are these great players, and they can be great role models for people. And I think that just talking about it in general can be huge for the sport, right? Like, think about your conversations with your friends and talking about sports. Always, always, always about the guys, and I totally get that. But with hockey, like the women's sport is becoming amazing. We have awesome players these days that are, like I said, can be great role models for younger kids. It's really fun to watch. The skills have developed tremendously, even when I was in college, which was just 3 years ago. So I think talking about it all in all will really help the game moving forward.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think exposure is another thing. Just bringing it on TV, because I feel like when most
Mm-hmm.
people see women's hockey, it's mostly for Olympics and other international tournaments. But I think broadcasting more college hockey games, like you said, because there's so many good women's college hockey players, would help people find out about women's hockey, but then also talk more about it since it's on TV and it's something they can watch. Because I was reading somewhere where the college softball World Series had more viewers than the college baseball World Series. So I feel like if you just put it on TV and give people those access to those channels, more people would watch and it would help grow the sport.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Now, what advice, I guess, would you give a younger player who's trying to pursue a D1 college hockey career?
Great question. I would say, I feel like most people probably say this, but it's a lot of work. Like you got to put in your effort. If you want to play D1 hockey, like it's not an easy. You can't just think you're going to go to a tournament and be seen by a coach and like that's it. Like you have to make sure you're ready for when you go to that tournament and you're seen by a coach. You have to make sure you're playing your A game when you go to a tournament and see a coach. So putting in the work in the summer is so important. And I'm not saying you need to be on the ice every single day because I think that can be actually overkill. And I think that you definitely need time away from the ice. But just because you're away from that, you can't be shooting pucks in the driveway, or you can't be weightlifting, you can't be training just in general. Um, just those little things in the summertime can go such a long way. I remember like I started getting into training and I remember the first season I came back after a summer of training and I had felt so ready to go right off the bat. And I know a lot of kids in high school, and again, I'm talking, you have to be at the right age for weight training and all this stuff. But I feel like a lot of times in the summertime, you don't even think about hockey. And then you get it back on the ice and you're so out of breath. You're so out of shape. It takes you half the season to catch up. And then you're finally where you need to be. But if you could be where you need to be right when in that first tournament in September even, like it can go such a long way. So I think that really just preparing for your season the right way can get you noticed by college coaches and really give you a leg up on everybody else. And I also want to say, if you have one bad game in front of a college coach, like in a tournament, that's not the end of the world. They're going to see you again. So just keep that in mind too. Like I remember my first tournament, I think we always had our first tournament late September, and it was a big showcase. And I remember when you're having just one really terrible game and being so nervous that, Erin O'Connor, going to cross her off the list. But coaches know people do have a bad game every once in a while or make a mistake once in a while. As long as you're not doing it consistently, you're going to be okay. So don't sweat those small little things, and everything will work out.
Well, I think that's a great way to end off the interview. But do you have any shout outs you'd like to give to any of your teammates, family members, or friends? I know we mentioned a lot of your teammates throughout the interview, but if there's anyone I forgot to mention, feel free to shout them out now.
Oh man, there's so many of them to shout out. I can't give any. I guess I can't give any shout outs out to anybody individual because I don't want to leave anybody out. But shout out to everybody who played at Cornell when I was there. Shout out to my family. Shout out to Dwyer. My boyfriend also played college hockey at Cornell.
Oh,
That's how
awesome.
we met. So go Cornell hockey. But yeah, that's about
Awesome.
it.
Well, thank you so much, Erin, for coming on the podcast. It means a lot to me. It was an honor to get the chance to interview today. It was fun watching you play when you were with Cornell. So I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and coming on today. It really means a lot. And I wish you all the best with the alcohol company as well.
Thank you, Matt. It was so nice to meet you and so great talking to you. And best of luck with your podcast. I can't wait to hear more episodes in the future.
Awesome. Well, one question